unaware she inherited a secret $10 billion trust. Husband and his family mocked his sick wife in front of their adopted daughter. Until a visit from the trust officer months later changed everything. He didn't just mock her. He did it while she was hooked to hospital monitors, pale and weak, with their 6-year-old adopted daughter standing at the foot of the bed clutching her favorite stuffed toy. Calder Holt stood over his sick wife, voice raised so the whole room could hear, and said, "You're a poor burden, nothing but dead weight. You curse everything you touch." His mother, Dorcella, didn't stop him. She joined in. "She doesn't belong in this family," Dorcella said coldly. "No class, no ambition, and embarrassment." A couple of relatives snickered. One cousin muttered, "He saved her from the gutter and she still drags him down." No one defended her. Not one person told him to stop. On the bed, Serafina Vale tried to steady her breathing. The dirty water he had thrown on her gown was still drying on her skin. She could feel every pair of eyes judging her, as if being sick made her less human. At the doorway, another woman, Nix Arden, leaned against the frame, watching with a small, satisfied smirk. Near the side of the bed, their little girl, Luma, cried out, "She's not a burden. She's my mama." But the Holt family acted like her voice didn't matter either. What none of them knew, not Calder, not Dorcella, not the relatives laughing at her, was that Serafina wasn't just the poor sick wife they liked to insult. For years, her name had been written in a private $10 billion trust. A trust officer had already been trying to reach her. One notice had gone missing from her mailbox. Another, sealed and marked urgent, had been intercepted at the hospital right in front of her, then burned. Months later, when a man in a dark suit would walk into the Holt estate, open a folder, and say the words Serafina Vale, sole heir, every cruel sentence they spoke in that hospital room would come back to choke them. This isn't just a story about a family mocking a sick wife. It's about what happens when you laugh at the woman you think is powerless, while standing on a fortune that secretly belongs to her. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's almost like standing silent in that hospital room while they mock Serafina. When you click that button, you stand with every person who has been called burden, dead weight, or embarrassment and still chose to rise. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The sound of a slammed door shattered the morning calm. Serafina Vale, 32, soft-spoken, gentle-eyed, flinched before she even turned her head. Calder Holt, her 35-year-old husband, stormed into the foyer with the same sharpness he used whenever he felt inconvenienced. His suit was perfect, his hair was perfect, and his expression was colder than both. "Why is this place always a mess?" he snapped, even though the marble floor shone and every cushion was straight. You'd think someone who grew up poor would at least know how to take care of something. The insult landed like a slap, but Serafina did not react. She never gave him the satisfaction. Instead, she quietly adjusted the backpack of their 6-year-old adopted daughter, Luma, who stood between them with wide, alert eyes. Luma watched everything now. She had learned too early that moods change faster than weather in this house. This was their life. Calder demanding, Calder insulting, Calder irritated with her very existence. But this wasn't where the story began. To understand Serafina's silence, her patience, you had to understand the world she came from before Calder tried to erase her. Serafina Vale was raised far from luxury. Her guardian, an elderly woman named Maeve, had taken her in at age 8 after a family accident Serafina barely remembered. Maeve was not wealthy, but she was educated, meticulous, and strangely connected to people Serafina never met. Letters arrived sometimes in thick envelopes with foreign stamps. Maeve always read them in private. She gave no explanations, only lessons. How to read a contract word by word, how to recognize hidden clauses, how to stay quiet until the right moment. "Quiet is power," Maeve would say, tapping the edge of a thick binder. People underestimate silence. At 12, Serafina experienced her first real mystery. Maeve sat her at a long wooden table, lit by a single lamp. A document lay in front of the girl, heavy paper, strange seal, a name she didn't know. Vale, Trust Division Private Holdings. Maeve let her see the heading, then slid it away before Serafina could read more. "Some inherit money," Maeve said softly. "You inherit responsibility." Serafina frowned. "What responsibility?" Maeve gave her the smallest smile. "When the time comes, they will come to you. Until then, you learn. And you do not sign anything carelessly, ever. No explanation, no numbers, no list of assets. Just a locked metal case Maeve hid in the attic and a rule that never changed. Wait, watch, read everything. Those early teachings shaped her. Even after Maeve passed when Serafina was 19, she continued signing every form with slow, careful eyes. It was a habit Calder mocked whenever he could. Back in the bright Holt foyer, Calder rolled his eyes while she checked Luma's zipper again. You waste time on pointless details, he muttered. Always thinking, always reading, never actually useful. Serafina remained calm. She had learned long ago that people like Calder mistook softness for weakness. Luma tugged Serafina's sleeve. Mama, can you walk me today? Before Serafina could answer, Calder cut in. No, she's slow. I'll take you. I don't have all day to wait for her. He turned to Serafina with a smirk. Skip the bread tonight. You're already looking heavier. Luma frowned. Dad. Calder ignored her. He always ignored her when he was insulting Serafina. Yet Serafina still held her peace, because while Calder believed she had nothing, no power, no wealth, no defense, he was wrong. Deeply wrong. The seeds of that truth lived quietly inside her past. After Calder left with Luma, Serafina walked to her small desk in the corner of the sitting room. Documents waited there, school forms, insurance letters, boring mail. Calder never handled himself. A few weeks earlier, one envelope had stood out from the rest thick cream paper, no company logo, her name written in precise black ink. She'd left it on the corner of the desk while she finished Luma's school forms. By evening it was gone. Calder said he hadn't seen it. She told herself she must have misplaced it and tried not to think about it. She sat now and began reading one of the ordinary letters with the same careful attention Maeve had drilled into her. As her eyes traced the lines, memories flickered. The long wooden table. Maeve's steady voice. Do not fear what people think of you, Maeve had said. One day they will change how they speak when they learn who you really are. Who am I? Young Serafina whispered. Maeve touched her cheek. Someone whose worth is already written. Hidden, but written. The flash faded. Present-day Serafina touched the edge of the document thoughtfully. Calder's comments didn't break her. She had survived harsher teachers than him. A photograph on her desk caught her eye. Maeve, standing beside a tall man in a dark suit. His face was half-shadowed, but the bold print on the document beneath the photo stood out clearly. Vale Trust Division Private Holdings. Serafina traced the old seal with her fingertip, the same symbol she had seen on Maeve's hidden papers. She never spoke of the trust, didn't understand its size, didn't know the rules. Maeve had said it wasn't time, and Serafina had obeyed. She placed the photo back and tucked a slim, sealed folder deeper into the drawer. It wasn't cowardice, just discipline. Wait. Watch. Do not reveal what is not necessary. Footsteps approached small, quick. Luma burst back in, cheeks flushed, breath short. Dad left his phone, she said. He told me to bring it. But, Mama? Serafina knelt. What is it, sweetheart? Luma looked at her with a strange, searching sadness. Mama, why do you flinch when people talk about money? Serafina froze. She opened her mouth to answer, but a vibration came from Calder's forgotten phone. The screen lit up on the console table. Message from Nix Arden. Did you tell her yet? Serafina's breath caught. The name meant nothing to her yet. The question did. Tell her what? Her eyes moved from the phone to the drawer with Maeve's seal and back again. A dull ache started under her ribs. She thought it was stress. It was the first quiet warning from the illness that would soon send her to the hospital. Some truths don't stay hidden forever, and some betrayals begin long before anyone names them. The pain hit her like a sudden knife under the ribs, sharp, fast, stealing her breath before she could steady herself. Serafina gripped the edge of the hospital bed as another wave of dizziness moved through her. Monitors beeped softly, not yet alarming, but her body felt loud inside her skin. Her vision blurred, then cleared. The nurse at her side spoke gently. Deep breaths, Mrs. Holt. In through your nose, out through your mouth, Serafina tried. She had lived with these episodes for years, chronic fatigue, sudden dizzy spells, a heart that sometimes raced without reason. Calder called it drama. Doctors called it an irregular rhythm and stress. Now the episodes were closer together. This time, the family doctor insisted on hospital tests. Calder Holt burst into the room with his usual force, pushing the door wider than necessary. His expression held irritation instead of concern. "What now?" he barked. "The nurse texted that you felt faint again. You always overreact." His dismissal cut through her more than the pain did. Luma, who had been coloring in a tiny notebook by the window, rushed to Serafina's side and climbed onto the chair, grabbing her mother's hand. "Mama, breathe slow," she said. "Like you taught me," Calder scoffed. "She teaches you to panic. She's always been dramatic." Before Serafina could respond, another figure stepped in. Dorcella Holt. Calder's mother moved like she owned the hospital. She removed her sunglasses as if the fluorescent lights offended her. "She looks heavier," Dorcella said loudly, examining Serafina like a broken item on a shelf. "Is that from lying around all day?" Serafina's cheeks warmed. She never liked attention. Humiliation felt worse in public. The nurse, standing by the monitor, stilled at the insult. Her eyes softened with sympathy, but she said nothing. She knew the Holt name. She also knew how quickly complaints from them could cost someone a job. Calder checked his watch, an expensive piece he'd bought shortly after he started taking late business meetings, with a consultant named Nick Sarden. Serafina knew the name now. She had quietly searched Calder's phone bill one night. "Nick's called often." "I don't have time for this," Calder muttered. "Doctors love drama." "Just handle it," Serafina swallowed. "Mama's not dramatic," Luma said suddenly, chin raised. Her small voice trembled, but her eyes were fierce. "She's hurting." Dorcella gave the child a thin, mocking smile. Children should stay out of adult matters. Serafina squeezed Luma's hand before the girl could reply. She didn't want Luma punished for defending her. The nurse stepped forward. "Mrs. Holt, your last EKG showed some irregular rhythm. We need to monitor you a bit longer. Any shortness of breath? Chest tightness?" Serafina opened her mouth to answer, but Calder spoke first. "She's always feeling something. She reads too much into every small ache." The nurse hesitated. Serafina lifted her hand slightly, signaling she would speak for herself. "I just need a moment," she whispered. "It comes and goes." The nurse nodded, adjusted a setting, and then a soft notification beep sounded from the station outside. She stepped into the hallway, then returned with a small stack of items, labs to sign, a plastic cup for urine tests, and one cream-colored envelope. "This came earlier this morning," the nurse said. "Registered mail, hand-delivered by a courier. It's marked urgent, addressed to Serafina Vale Holt." Serafina's chest tightened. The envelope carried a seal raised, formal, identical to the one she had seen in Maeve's old papers. Before Serafina could reach for it, Dorcella stepped forward, faster than anyone expected, and took the envelope out of the nurse's hand. "She doesn't need paperwork right now," Dorcella said coolly. "She can barely focus as it is." Calder gave a short laugh. "Exactly. Don't hand her anything important. She'll just make a mess of it." The nurse blinked, surprised. "Ma'am, this was signed for by family," Dorcella cut in. "And I am family." The nurse looked at Serafina. Serafina's lips parted, but years of being dismissed held her back for 1 second too long. Dorcella slid the envelope into her handbag with a smooth, practiced motion. Serafina's pulse quickened. She had seen that seal before. Maeve once told her, "One day something sealed will arrive. Do not be afraid of it. Do not let anyone else speak for you." Now someone else had it. Luma, still holding her hand, leaned closer. "Mama, you look sad." Serafina forced a gentle smile. "I'm okay, little light." She wasn't. The nurse lingered beside the bed, clearly uncomfortable. Her eyes flicked once toward Dorcella's bag, then back to Serafina. I'll note in your chart that urgent mail was delivered," she said quietly. The words were careful, but there was meaning beneath them. A record, a trail. "Let us know if you need anything," she whispered before slipping out. Serafina watched her leave. As the door closed, she caught a glimpse of something on the corner of the envelope inside Dorcella's bag, a faint, unfamiliar symbol printed next to the seal. Not just a trust seal. An activation mark Maeve had once pointed at in a textbook and called the point of no return. For the first time in a long time, Serafina's breath caught not from illness, but from fear. Something important had finally reached her, and someone else had taken it. Some hands take what doesn't belong to them, and some take it for a purpose far darker than silence. By late afternoon, the hospital's family lounge buzzed with low conversation, coffee smells, and the soft drone of a muted TV. Serafina had been wheeled there for a short break from the machines. She insisted on standing now, gripping the back of a chair to prove to Luma she was fine. She wasn't. Her knees trembled. Her pulse fluttered in her throat. But she needed to look steady. Chaos met her the moment she stepped fully inside. Dorcella Holt stood in the center like she owned the room. She was rearranging furniture, giving orders to a young staff member. "Move that chair," Dorcella commanded, pointing to the spot beside Calder. "Calder's guest will sit here." Her tone made it clear this was not a request. Serafina froze mid-step. Calder stood near his mother, arms crossed, leaning back casually as if posing for a camera. His smirk gave Serafina her first warning that something was planned. Then she saw her. Nix Arden, the name from Calder's phone. Now a real person in a real place. Nix stepped forward with effortless grace, tall, elegant, hair styled in soft waves over a designer blouse. She wore a visitor's badge clipped neatly to her lapel, as if she belonged here, as if she had every right to be in the family's private crisis. Her smile was slow, sharp. "Hello, Serafina," Nix said, voice silky. "I'm glad you're, well, standing today. Calder said you've had quite a spell." It sounded polite. It wasn't. Calder's eyes glowed with satisfaction. "Nix came to support the family," he said, as if that made sense. "Don't make it awkward." Serafina's breath tightened. This was their hospital stay, their child's worry, their fight for her health, and he brought his mistress. Dorcella gestured to the chair she had just moved to Calder's side. "Sit here, Nix," she said warmly. "This is Calder's place. Naturally, his guest should be next to him." Nix sat gracefully straight into the chair Serafina usually took when doctors gave updates. Serafina stood frozen in the doorway, one hand on Luma's shoulder. Heat rose up the back of her neck. This wasn't subtle betrayal. This was intentional replacement, performed publicly, designed to crush her. Nix crossed her legs slowly, letting her heel tap the floor. She looked Serafina up and down with a soft, satisfied smile. "For success, darling," Nix murmured, just loud enough. "Something you clearly don't understand." A wave of whispers rippled through the room. Calder's siblings, a couple of cousins, and two family friends watched with tense interest. No one defended Serafina. Silence, here, meant permission. Calder glanced at her, lips lifting in a mocking half-smile. "Don't embarrass me, just stand there, it's better for everyone." The insult sliced through the last pieces of dignity she had left from the morning. Replacement humiliation, class shaming, erasure tactics. Every cruelty Maeve once warned her about was unfolding in real time. Serafina tried to inhale slowly, grounding herself like Maeve had taught her. Calm through pain, quiet through cruelty. Her chest ached from the effort. Beside her, Luma looked up with confused eyes. "Mama," she whispered, tugging Serafina's sleeve. "Why is she in your place?" Serafina swallowed hard. How did someone explain adultery and cruelty to a 6-year-old? She couldn't. Not yet. Nix leaned back in the stolen chair, hand resting lightly on Calder's arm. Calder turned toward her, talking softly, laughing in a way Serafina didn't recognize anymore. Serafina reached for another chair to steady herself. Dorcella saw and smirked. "Careful, dear. We wouldn't want you fainting. It's already dramatic enough having you in here." "I'm fine," Serafina said quietly. "Good," Calder replied. "The last thing we need is more drama from you." Luma's small hand slid into hers, gripping tight. "It's okay, little light," Serafina whispered, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Mama's here." Nix tilted her head. "For now," she murmured, eyes glittering. Serafina heard it. Everyone did. A couple of cousins looked away. A hospital security guard standing near the door shifted uncomfortably. He had seen Serafina earlier with Luma and the nurse. His jaw tightened. He said nothing. Calder turned to Nix, ignoring his wife. "You look great today," he said lightly. "I knew that color would suit you." He had never spoken to Serafina like that, not even when they first married. Nix reached forward, a little too bold, and adjusted the edge of Serafina's scarf at her neck. Her fingers brushed Serafina's collarbone, too intimate for a stranger, too cruel for a rival. Her smile sharpened. She leaned closer, breath warm and false against Serafina's ear. "You won't be here much longer," Nix whispered. The words struck like ice. Serafina stiffened. Luma gasped softly. Nix leaned back, expression smooth, as if she hadn't said anything at all. That's when Serafina noticed something else. Dorcella's handbag, resting on the small side table, was unzipped, just enough for a cream-colored corner of paper to show. The urgent envelope, the trust seal, still there for now. Sometimes enemies don't just replace you, they prepare to remove you long before you know it's happening. The shouting started before the consultation room door even shut. Calder Holt stormed inside first, jaw tight, footsteps sharp. Dorcella followed with controlled calm, like a queen entering a throne room. Nix Arden slipped in last, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt louder than Calder's anger. Inside, Calder's siblings, Ronan and Marin Holt, sat at a rectangular table. They stood when Calder entered, more out of habit than respect. They didn't know the details yet. But they knew the Holt family didn't gather like this for good news. Dorcella placed a large folder on the table and opened it. Inside were photographs printed in glossy color. Serafina walking out of a pharmacy alone. Serafina speaking to a male nurse in a hallway. Serafina sitting in a waiting room, hand pressed to her forehead. All harmless on their own. All cropped, zoomed, and chosen to look suspicious. She's unstable, Dorcella said, tapping a finger on the pictures. Always has been. Look at her eyes. Ronan squinted. She looks tired. Marin nodded slowly. Stressed. Exactly, Dorcella said. Stressed women make dangerous choices. We cannot have someone like that representing our name. Nick stepped closer, her expression smooth. If Dorcella was the architect, Nix was the decorator of this cruelty. I pulled some numbers, Nick said, laying another sheet on the table. Small transfers, little purchases. She keeps misplacing funds. It suggests emotional instability, poor impulse control. The report looked official. It wasn't. Oris would later prove the file was falsified and edited on Nix's personal laptop, but today, in this room, no one checked. Calder didn't ask for proof. He didn't want truth. He wanted permission. I knew she was dead weight, Calder muttered, picking up a photo as if it contained evidence of betrayal. Always dragging us down. Always sick. Always. Slow. Nix's lips curved. Unstable wives can be. Inconvenient during divorce petitions. Judges like clear stories. Dorcella folded her hands, pleased. We need a narrative. She's fragile, depressed, unable to manage finances or a household. That will justify removing her from anything important: money, Luma, decisions. And if she ever gets some kind of inheritance, her eyes glinted, we position ourselves as protectors, for the child, for the estate. There it was, the lie. New but already polished. Serafina isn't dangerous, Marin said softly. She's quiet. Quiet people hide the most, Dorcella replied. You know that. Ronan shifted. We just need to be careful legally, Mother. We can't just throw her out. Dorcella turned to the two Holt private security officers standing near the wall. They had been called in for family safety. Now their real purpose became clear. Prepare incident reports, Dorcella ordered. Anytime she looks confused, write it down. If she stumbles, record it. If she raises her voice, she's unstable. We are building a case. The words hit the room like a cold draft. Calder didn't flinch. Ronan and Marin exchanged uneasy looks but said nothing. Nix leaned on the table, confident. She won't fight, Nix said. She's too busy feigning and clutching her chest, and she has no money for lawyers. Dorcella smirked. And when the time comes, she'll have no one to defend her. Calder cracked his knuckles. Let's finish this. They lowered their voices, speaking about doctors they could suggest, therapists who might agree to write certain phrases, relatives who would gladly repeat the story, everything precise, everything cruel. Serafina had no idea any of this was happening, but someone did. One of the security officers, newer, younger, less hardened, shifted his weight. He had seen Serafina earlier when Luma hugged her. He had also seen Calder laughing with Nix. His stomach twisted, but silence, in this room, was safety. Dorcella closed the folder with a snap. It's settled, she said. We move quickly. I'll have the envelope taken care of tonight. No one needs to know it ever arrived. Nix pulled out her phone. She opened a message thread labeled housekeeper, private. She typed a single word, burn. Below it, she attached a photo of the cream-colored envelope with the trust seal. Her thumb hovered for a heartbeat, then tapped send. A slow smile spread across her face. Some fires destroy evidence, but some leave just enough ash to tell the truth. The next morning, the attack began before Serafina even realized the door had opened. She was back in her hospital room, pale from tests, back propped against pillows. Her hair was loosely braided the way Luma liked. The machines around her beeped in slow, steady rhythms. She had almost convinced herself she could endure a few more days like this. Then Dorcella Holt marched in, carrying a metal cleaning bucket. Behind her came Calder, his stride aggressive, his irritation already simmering. Nix slipped in last. The same designer bag hanging from her shoulder, the one she'd used the night before when she'd watched the housekeeper burn Serafina's envelope and stuffed the half-burned remains inside. She leaned against the wall, watching. Luma had just come back from the nurse's station with a cup of juice. She stopped in the doorway, small fingers tightening around the cup when she saw the bucket. Serafina frowned. "What are you doing with that?" Dorcella lifted the bucket with both hands. "If you're sick," she announced loudly, "then you should be purified." "Mother," Calder said with a twisted smile, "don't spill it on the floor. You know how she hates a mess." Serafina's heart sped up. "Put it down. This is a hospital." But she didn't get another word out. Calder stepped forward in one fast, angry motion. Before she could shield herself, he tilted the bucket and dumped the dirty, cold water over her chest and lap. The shock robbed her breath. The water was icy, seeping instantly through her thin gown, soaking the sheets. The harsh smell filled her nose. Drops splashed onto the floor and onto Luma's shoes. For one long second, the room went silent. Even the machine seemed to fade. Then gasps burst from the doorway. A nurse who had been walking past froze. A junior doctor stopped mid-step. No one expected that. Calder straightened, breathing hard, his expression twisted with disgust. "Poor Burden," he said loudly, making sure the witnesses heard. "You curse everything you touch." Nix pressed her lips together, eyes bright with cruel satisfaction as she watched Serafina tremble. Dorcella nodded like someone judging a performance. "Look at her, so dramatic, so weak. If you ask me, this is exactly why she shouldn't be part of our family anymore." Serafina's teeth chattered. Not from cold, from shock. She didn't scream. She didn't shout. Years of Maeve's training endure, observe, record held her still even as humiliation burned under her skin. Luma let out a sound so sharp it cut through the whole room. "Stop!" she cried, dropping the juice and rushing forward. "Stop! You're hurting her." Calder didn't even look at her. "Stay out of this, Luma. This is adult business." Luma pushed at his leg, tears streaming. "She's my mama. Don't hurt her." Nix's smirk curved deeper. She leaned toward Calder and whispered, just loud enough for Serafina to hear, "She always gets emotional. So messy." Serafina swallowed hard, lifting a shaking hand to brush water from her eyes. She pulled Luma close with her other arm. "It's okay, little light," she whispered. "Mama's here." From the doorway, the nurse finally moved. "Sir, you can't do that," she said, voice firming. "This is a hospital. I'm going to have to report," Calder snapped. "Report what? I was helping." She needed to wake up. She always acts half dead. The nurse looked at the soaked sheets, the shivering patient, the crying child. Her jaw set. "I'm still documenting this," she said, "and I'll be calling the charge nurse." Dorcella clicked her tongue. "Oh, please. We donate enough to this hospital. Don't make a scene over a little water." The nurse didn't back down this time. "Leave," she said. "Now, all of you, unless you're immediate caregivers. I'll get fresh linens." Calder stared at her, then at the security camera in the corner he had forgotten was there. A flash of uncertainty crossed his face. "Fine," he muttered. "We were leaving anyway." Dorcella lifted her bag. Nix pushed off the wall to follow. Nix lingered for one last dig. "You should rest," she said sweetly. "You look exhausted." Serafina said nothing. Nix turned toward the door, and something small fell from her bag as she moved. A tiny, charred fragment of cream-colored paper fluttered to the floor near the bed. Luma saw it first. "Mama," something dropped. When the room finally emptied of Holtz and the nurse stepped out to get dry linens, Serafina forced her aching body forward just enough to see the scrap. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. Soot stained her skin. A single clear word cut through the burn marks. Trust. The same word on Maeve's documents. The same seal on the stolen envelope. Her breath hitched. This was no accident. Nix had carried burned pieces of her letter. This wasn't just cruelty anymore. It was proof. Some things burn easily, but some secrets survive the fire, waiting for the right person to uncover them. All right, here's the second half. Scene 610 rewritten, all dots connected, and then a breakdown of the logic gaps I fixed for these scenes. 2 days after the humiliation, the hospital discharged Serafina. The cardiologist adjusted her medication, wrote stress-related triggers in her file, and gently suggested counseling. The nurse who had witnessed the dirty water incident walked her to the elevator in silence. "If you feel unsafe at home," the nurse said softly, "there are people you can call. I documented what happened." Serafina nodded once. "Thank you." Calder hadn't come that morning. He'd sent a short text. "Work. We'll talk later." Dorsella didn't come at all. Nix never visited unless Calder was there. Serafina knew what "we'll talk later" meant. He would talk. She would endure. Not this time. She held Luma's hand tightly as they walked out of the hospital. The air felt too bright, too sharp for someone who had been under fluorescent lights and judgmental eyes. Calder had arranged a driver, but when the car pulled up, Serafina didn't give the Holt address. She gave a different one. A small, modest building on the quieter side of town. A furnished short-stay apartment Maeve once pointed out years ago and called a safe place if you ever need to breathe. Back then, Serafina didn't understand. Now she did. The driver didn't care. He dropped them off, took his payment from the Holt account, and left. Inside the temporary apartment, the silence was heavy but kind. No Dorsella, no Calder, no Nix. Just a couch, a small table, a narrow kitchen, and space to think. Luma fell asleep on the couch, still clutching her stuffed toy. Her small body curled toward the back cushions, finally relaxed. Serafina watched her for a long time. Then she took off her necklace. The tiny rusted key that had hung around her neck since she was 8 swung from the chain. It had once opened a metal case under Maeve's bed, later under Serafina's. After she married Calder, she moved the case to a safe deposit box so no one in the Holt house could touch it. She had never opened it fully, not until now. She went to the bedroom, closed the door gently, and pulled a slim safe deposit envelope from her bag. She had stopped by the bank on the way from the hospital, hands still shaking, and signed for the box Maeve had left in her name. Now the metal case sat on the bedspread, dull and familiar. Serafina slid the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click. Inside were 3 things: a folded document with Maeve's careful handwriting, a business card with a name and phone number, and a small yellowed instruction card. She picked up the card first. "If they ever strip you of dignity, call." Her throat tightened. They had. In front of nurses, in front of her child. She picked up the business card. Malin Cross, attorney at law, small print at the bottom. Trust and estate protection. Confidential counsel. Serafina's fingers hovered over her phone screen for a heartbeat. Then she dialed. The line rang once, twice. Then a calm female voice answered. "This is Malin Cross." Serafina swallowed. "Malin, my name is Serafina Vale." "Maeve." "Yes," Malin interrupted gently. "I've been expecting your call. Maeve told me you might need help one day." Serafina froze. "She did?" "Maeve planned ahead," Malin said. "Where are you? Are you safe?" Serafina glanced toward the living room where Luma slept. "I'm in a temporary apartment, away from my husband, away from his family." "Good," Malin replied. "Text me your address. I'm coming over." "And Serafina?" "Yes." "Don't apologize for calling. This is exactly why Maeve hired me." Malin Cross arrived within hours. She was in her early 40s, sharp-featured, hair tied back simply, dressed in a dark suit that looked like it had seen more courtrooms than parties. She stepped into the apartment, took everything in with one quick sweep, and sat at the table. "I'm your legal counsel now," she said without small talk. "Nothing you say leaves this room without your permission. Start from the beginning, slowly." So Serafina did. She told her about Calder's constant insults, Dorcella's cruelty, Nix's presence at the hospital, the stolen envelope, the dirty water, the burned fragment with the word trust, Maeve's teachings, the symbol on the seal. She did not cry. She simply told the truth. Malin listened without interrupting, only asking a few precise questions. "When did you first see the sealed envelope? Who else saw it? What did the nurse do?" When Serafina finished, Malin leaned back. They've crossed several lines, she said. Not just moral ones, legal ones. She pulled out her phone and sent a short message. A quiet knock came at the door 40 minutes later. A man in his late 30s walked in square glasses, calm eyes, a worn leather notebook in hand. "This is Oris Pike," Malin said, former compliance auditor. "Now, he helps clients like you when someone has been creative with money and documents." Oris nodded politely. "I work quietly, but thoroughly." He sat, opened his notebook, and clicked his pen. "Did anyone intercept your mail recently?" he asked. Serafina stiffened. "Yes, at the hospital. Dorcella took a cream-colored envelope addressed to me. It had the same seal as Maeve's trust papers." "Describe the seal," Oris said. She did. Every line, every symbol, even the small activation mark in the corner. Oris's expression sharpened. "That's not a random logo. That's a registered trust insignia." "What does that mean?" Serafina asked. "It means," Oris replied slowly, "that someone interrupted an official trust communication. And if they burned it, as you suspect, that's destruction of legal correspondence, especially if the trust is large." "Large?" Serafina repeated. Malin's eyes were steady on her. "Maeve never told you the figures?" "No," Serafina whispered. "She just said I inherited responsibility." Malin opened her own folder and slid a single sheet across the table. "We suspected this might be connected to you for years," she said. "Maeve hired me to monitor the Vale Trust quietly and to act if anyone interfered with you. We sent a formal notice to your home address first. When it never reached you, the trust arranged a registered courier to the hospital." Serafina looked down. "Vale Dynasty Trust. Beneficiary file. Serafina Vale?" Her heart pounded. "She named me?" Serafina asked. "She built the entire structure around you," Malin corrected softly. "And your safety." Oris tapped the table lightly. "If Holtz intercepted that envelope, they didn't just insult you, they interfered with this." He pointed to the trust document. Malin nodded. "Which changes this from private family cruelty to something much larger. Fraud, obstruction," Oris added, "and possibly inheritance interference." Serafina stared at the sheet, at her name printed in bold. Calder had always told her she was nothing. The paper in front of her said otherwise. Oris closed his notebook. "We'll need a copy of that burned fragment. Hospital records, security footage, bank statements, phone logs. We'll move step by step." Malin's voice softened. "You don't have to fight alone anymore, Serafina. Maeve saw what you might face. She put people in place for this exact moment." Serafina exhaled slowly. Her silence wasn't empty anymore. It was loaded. With evidence. With names. With Maeve's plan finally waking up. Some crimes hide in ashes and bank lines, but ashes still carry fingerprints and numbers. Over the next several weeks, the apartment no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like a war room. The dining table was covered in files, printouts, and a small portable forensic lamp Oris had brought. Luma spent most of her time in the bedroom, drawing or watching cartoons with headphones on, checked on every hour by Malin between phone calls. Oris Pike stood over the table now, sleeves rolled up, hands steady. "This," he said, tapping a burned fragment under the lamp, "is where we start." The charred corner of paper glowed faintly under the light. The word trust still cut through the blackened edges. Serafina sat with her hands folded, eyes never leaving the fragment. The investigation did not explode. It advanced like a blade, silent, precise, and meant for cutting lies. A forensic document specialist Oris worked with joined them one afternoon, a quiet man with gloves and a small kit. "The fibers match high-security trust stationery," he said after examining the fragment. "Watermark confirms it belongs to a registered financial entity. This wasn't a personal letter, it was institutional." "And the seal?" Oris asked. "The imprint is partial but distinct. Combined with Miss Vale's description and the trust registry, it's enough to confirm origin." "The Vale Trust Division," Malin said. Serafina inhaled, not in fear this time, but with a sharp recognition. Maeve's warnings, the seal, the activation mark. Oris photographed everything and logged it. "This proves something was burned," he said, "and that it was never junk mail." Next came the numbers. With Malin's legal requests and a quiet nudge from the trust's own legal department, Oris obtained bank records, not all at once, but piece by piece. He spread them out like a puzzle. These, he said, highlighting a line of transactions on his laptop, are your joint accounts. Serafina leaned closer. Calder had always accused her of spending too much whenever he wanted to shame her. Oris's cursor moved down a column. Except the bigger withdrawals and transfers, he pointed out. They don't go to you, they go here. He opened another file, a personal account in Nick Arden's name. Small transfers at first, a few hundred, then a few thousand. Then, after Serafina's illness worsened, five-figure sums. Calder told everyone he had to cover your medical bills, Malin said. In reality, he was bleeding the account into his mistress's pocket. A slow, cold understanding settled in Serafina's chest. They starved me, she said quietly, then told everyone I was irresponsible. Oris nodded. It's textbook financial abuse, and it gives them a motive to hide any money that might come to you from a trust, for example. Malin placed a printed copy of the audit Nix had presented in the Holt consultation room on the table. We obtained this through discovery, she said. Calder's lawyer thought it helped them. Oris connected his laptop, opened the digital version, and went straight to the metadata. There, he said, tapping the screen. Created on Nix's personal laptop. Not a company server, not a professional email domain. And see these edits? He scrolled through a log of changes. She built it from a template she downloaded somewhere, then altered numbers to make it look like you were draining funds. She even mislabeled one of Calder's transfers to herself as yours. Sloppy. Serafina gave a short, humorless exhale. Almost a laugh. She always said I had no business sense, she murmured. Projection, Malin replied. People like that assume others are as dishonest as they are. Malin's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then ended the call. That was the hospital's legal department, she said. They've complied with our records request. We have incident notes, nursing statements, and security footage. She opened a folder and slid some pages toward Serafina, several short statements from nurses and a junior doctor. Patient's husband dumped dirty water on her. Mother-in-law belittled patient's condition. Child present and distressed. Attempted to intercept registered mail. Serafina's eyes moved over each line. They saw, she whispered. Yes, Malin said. And now it's not just a memory, it's documented. Oris opened a video file. Grainy footage appeared. A hallway shot of Dorcella taking an envelope from a nurse and placing it in her handbag. He slowed it down, frame by frame. There, he said. Envelope, seal, timestamp. We now know exactly when your trust letter was intercepted. Serafina didn't look away. Not once. When the table was finally covered with proof-burned fragment, financial records, forged audit, statements, video, Oris leaned back. They thought burning one letter would erase its existence, he said. Malin added. In reality, destroying it creates a new problem for them. Intent. Serafina sat quietly for a moment. Then she said, I don't want this hidden. Malin looked up. What do you mean? I don't want this to be just paperwork in a file somewhere, Serafina replied. They humiliated me publicly. They called me weak. I want the truth to be just as visible as their cruelty was. Malin's gaze was steady. If we take this to court, there will be media interest. Calder is known in business circles. Nix has clients. Dorcella runs in certain social groups. They will fight back. Hard. They didn't ask my permission when they used me as a story, Serafina said. So I won't ask theirs to correct it. Oris's lips curved faintly. Respect. Malin nodded once. Then we move. She pulled out a fresh document and placed it gently in front of Serafina. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Serafina Vale Holt versus Calder Holt. This is step 1, Malin said. Divorce, custody petition, financial accounting, protective orders, and formal notice to the trust that their beneficiary is under direct attack. Serafina's hand trembled, but not from fear. From decision. She picked up the pen. Maeve's voice echoed in her memory. Quiet is power. Don't waste it on people who don't listen. Save it for when you speak in a room that matters. Serafina signed. A door that had been closing on her for years finally stopped, and another, much heavier one, started to open. Some storms roar, but the quiet ones, the ones armed with proof, tear entire empires down. A few months after the divorce petition was filed, the Holt estate decided to celebrate. Not publicly, of course. Dorcella would never risk a press photographer catching them dancing on scandal. But privately? Among people who benefited from Holt contracts and didn't ask questions? Yes. Glasses clinked. Laughter floated across polished marble floors. Someone turned music on low. It looked like a casual gathering, but the smugness in the air was thick. Dorcella stood at the center of the living room, pearls resting heavily at her throat. Calder sat beside her, one hand on Nix Arden's knee. Nix wore a silk robe, pale blue, the same robe Luma had once chosen for Serafina on Mother's Day. The one Dorcella had mocked as too plain for a Holt wife. Now it was on Nix like a stolen crown. To better days, Dorcella said, raising her glass. To removing chaos from this family, Calder smirked. And to finally having a woman beside me who understands ambition. Nix leaned forward and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, her eyes gleaming. She never fit, Dorcella added loudly. She doesn't belong in our world. She never did. A few relatives chuckled, some out of habit, some out of fear of disagreeing. Near the doorway, a security guard stood with his hands clasped in front of him. He'd read the newest internal memo. If trust representatives or court officers arrive, notify immediately. Do not obstruct. He swallowed and kept his eyes on the main entrance. Then ding. The doorbell echoed through the room. Calder frowned. We're not expecting anyone else. Maybe the caterer, Dorcella said. Go check. The guard reached the door first and opened it. A tall man in a dark suit stood there, composed and formal. He carried a leather case in one hand and an ID badge clipped to his lapel. Good evening, the man said. My name is Alaric Venn. I'm the appointed trust officer for the Vale Dynasty Trust. I have formal notices to deliver to Mr. Calder Holt and Mrs. Dorcella Holt regarding ongoing investigations and property protections. The guard stiffened slightly. Ma'am, sir, you'll want to hear this. Calder stepped forward, irritation already rising. Who? Alaric repeated calmly. Alaric Venn, trust officer. Nix's hand tightened around her glass. Dorcella's smile froze. Guests turned, sensing a shift. Calder forced a laugh. You've got the wrong address. We don't need whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything, Alaric replied. I am here because one of my beneficiaries has been deprived of critical trust communication while living in this house and under your authority. He opened his leather case and removed a folder, embossed with a seal. The same seal that had been on Maeve's documents. The same seal on the burned letter. The Vale Trust recognizes Serafina Vale as the named beneficiary, Alaric said clearly. We have activated breach protocols due to interference. The room fell silent. What did you just say? Dorcella whispered. Alaric looked directly at her. Serafina Vale, sole heir of the Vale Dynasty Trust. Current estimated valuation, approximately $10 billion in holdings and assets. Gasps rippled through the room. Nix stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. That's no, you're joking. Calder's face drained of color. That's impossible. She's nobody. Alaric's expression remained neutral. She is not nobody to us. And legally, she is not nobody to you either. He pulled out another document. We have obtained security footage of an intercepted trust letter inside the hospital where Mrs. Vale was treated. We have witness statements. We have forensic confirmation that the letter was burned after leaving our custody. His gaze shifted from Calder to Dorcella. And we have detailed financial records showing repeated transfers from the marital account to Miss Nix Arden's personal accounts during the same period. Nix's hands shook. Calder lunged toward the documents. Let me see that. Alaric pulled them back. You will see all of this through your counsel. Tonight, my duty is to formally notify you of 3 things. He held up one finger. First, Serafina Vale is our sole heir. Any attempt to pressure her into signing documents related to her inheritance, marital property, or child custody will be treated as coercion and challenged with our full legal resources. Second finger. Second, we have supported her attorney in filing for divorce, custody, and protective orders. As of this afternoon, an emergency order prevents the sale, transfer, or hiding of any major Holt asset that could impact her or her child. That includes this home. Calder's voice cracked. This is my house. Alaric's eyes didn't move. Legally, this house is marital property tied to your name and hers, he said. The court has temporarily frozen your ability to make unilateral decisions about it. You may live here for now, but you may not evict, threaten, or financially sabotage the protected party. A small chime sounded from the hallway. Everyone turned. The security guard glanced at the screen of the estate's home control panel mounted on the wall. "Sir," the guard said carefully, "we just got a remote update from the alarm company. They've implemented the court's temporary restrictions. You no longer have authority to change security codes, guest lists, or access permissions without court approval. It's locked until the hearing." Calder stared at him. "What?" Nix whispered. "You said she had nothing." Dorcella's hand shook, glass rattling against the crystal stem. "You can't do this to us. She was never one of us. She doesn't deserve this kind of protection." Alaric closed his folder calmly. "She didn't ask for protection," he said. "Maeve did. Years ago. She built an entire system to make sure that if anyone tried to strip Serafina of dignity or inheritance, they would find themselves standing exactly where you are right now." Several guests quietly set their glasses down. The room didn't feel like a celebration anymore. It felt like a courtroom without robes. Calder's face twisted. "You think you can destroy my life? You destroyed your own life when you decided humiliation and fraud were easier than honesty." Alaric replied, tone still mild. "We are simply making sure the person you targeted has the resources to stand up." The security guard looked from Calder to Dorcella, then to Nix. For the first time, his sympathy shifted clearly in one direction, not theirs. Alaric nodded once to the guard. "Thank you for allowing me to deliver formal notice." Then he turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused. "One more thing," he added without turning back. "The trust prefers to work quietly, but if necessary, we can work very publicly. I suggest you cooperate with the court." The front door closed behind him. The music was still playing. No one listened to it anymore. Calder suddenly understood. Serafina hadn't been removed from his world. He had just been shown he was never really in hers. The house wasn't the only thing slipping from Calder's fingers. Next, it would be his name, his child, and the story he told about himself. The courthouse hallway smelled like old paper and coffee. Still, when Serafina Vale stepped through the heavy doors into the family courtroom, the air felt cleaner than any room she'd been in for years. Reporters waited near the back, kept at a distance by security. A few whispered as she passed, glancing at printed headlines about the Vale Trust and the Holt scandal. Serafina walked with calm, steady steps. No diamonds, no dramatic outfit, just a simple dress, neat hair, and quiet composure. Beside her, Malin carried a slim case. Oris sat in the second row behind them. Luma, too young to sit through the full hearing, waited in a supervised room down the hall with a court child specialist. She would be brought in briefly, then taken back out. Across the room, the Holt family sat on one side of the aisle. Calder's jaw twitched. Dorcella's lips were pressed so tightly together they had turned white. Nix, out on bail and under investigation because of the falsified audit, stared straight ahead with hollow eyes. The judge entered. "All rise." Everyone stood. "Be seated." The room settled. "Case: Serafina Vale Holt versus Calder Holt," the clerk announced. "Divorce proceedings, custody determination, and motions regarding protective orders and allegations of fraud." Malin rose first. "Your Honor, we intend to show a clear pattern of financial abuse, emotional and medical cruelty, and deliberate interference with my client's legal inheritance and mail," she said. She handed the bailiff a stack of documents, which were passed to the judge. One by one, she outlined the evidence: the burned trust letter and forensic report confirming its origin, security footage of Dorcella taking the envelope at the hospital, hospital incident reports documenting the dirty water humiliation and derogatory comments, bank records showing Calder's transfers to Nix's private account, metadata proving Nix's audit was falsified. As each item was described, the judge's face grew more serious. Serafina didn't look at Calder. She looked at the judge. At the process. At the place Maeve had promised would matter more than private cruelty. When Malin finished, the judge turned to the other table. "Mr. Holt," he said, "you may respond." Calder stood too quickly. "Your Honor," he began, "this is exaggerated. Serafina, she's always been emotional. She takes everything personally. He floundered. "She's unstable," he finished. "She doesn't understand what she's talking about. She never contributed. I carried everything. And this trust officer, he's twisting things. She doesn't deserve." Malin rose. Objection, character attack, not a response to evidence. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Holt, address the documents, not your personal opinion of your wife's personality. Calder's nostrils flared. The money transfers were, thank you gifts. Nix did consulting for my company, and the water incident was a joke taken out of context. People overreact. Nurses have their own agenda, and that letter, maybe it was junk mail. How are we supposed to know? The security footage shows your mother taking an urgent, registered letter bearing a financial trust seal, the judge said. Hospital protocols and your own nurse's notes contradict your version of events. Calder's voice rose. She was dead weight. I did what I had to do to wake her up. A wave of murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge's expression hardened. Watch your language, Mr. Holt. This is a court of law. Serafina rose before Malin could stop her. Your Honor, she said quietly. May I speak? The judge studied her for a moment, then nodded. Briefly, Serafina stepped forward, hands relaxed at her sides. She looked at Calder first. You mocked me while I was hooked to machines, she said softly. You told me I was a burden. You poured dirty water on me in a hospital room, in front of our daughter. Calder opened his mouth, but no words came out. You told me I cursed everything I touched, she continued. But you were the one who touched our accounts and drained them. You were the one who touched my mail and burned it. You were the one who turned a safe place into a stage for your cruelty. She turned to Nix. You wore my robe, Serafina said. You laughed while my child cried. You wrote fake reports to make me look unstable, all to stand next to a man who was hurting another woman and call it success. Nix's chin trembled. She looked down. Then Serafina faced Dorcella. You taught them that humiliating me was normal, that I was less because I didn't come from money. You said I didn't belong. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't break. You all thought silence meant I had nothing, Serafina said, letting her eyes sweep the room. It didn't. It meant I was watching, and waiting for the right room to speak in. The courtroom was so quiet the air felt thick. Even the reporters had stopped scratching their pens across notepads. The judge cleared his throat, regaining the formal tone. Thank you, Mrs. Vale, he said. You may be seated. She returned to her chair. After reviewing the paperwork again, the judge folded his hands. Based on the evidence, he said slowly, this court finds a clear pattern of emotional abuse, financial misconduct, and interference with trust property. Therefore, divorce is granted, effective immediately. Full legal and physical custody of the minor child, Luma, is awarded to Serafina Vale. Mr. Holt will have supervised visitation only, subject to review and compliance with court-ordered counseling. Financial restitution is ordered to Mrs. Vale for the misappropriated funds. Further, this court will be referring the matter of the destroyed trust letter, falsified audit, and suspicious transfers to the district attorney's office and relevant regulatory authorities for potential criminal investigation. Nix sucked in a sharp breath. Dorcella stared forward frozen. Calder's shoulders sagged as if someone had removed the bones. The judge struck his gavel once. Court is adjourned. Chairs scraped. Reporters began whispering again, already composing their headlines. Cameras flashed from the hallway as people filed out. Serafina didn't rush. She turned once, looking at Calder not with rage, but with a calm distance. Then she walked toward the door where the child specialist waited with Luma. As she stepped into the hallway, Malin leaned closer. We're not done, she whispered. This is just the legal foundation, Oris murmured. And the trust hasn't even fully spoken yet. Near the side exit, Nix Arden slipped away quickly. Head down, jacket pulled tight. She wasn't allowed to travel far without notifying the court, but she could still run from cameras. Malin's eyes tracked her. She's running from the spotlight, Malin said. People only run that hard when there's something else they haven't told us yet. Serafina paused. For the first time, anger flickered across her face. Not the chaotic kind. The kind that comes from finally recognizing how much someone has taken and knowing you have tools to get it back. Courtrooms reveal truth, but the final reckoning, the one that really changes people, comes afterward, when the lights are off and consequences stay. The days after the ruling weren't dramatic. They were steady, relentless. Across the city, news feeds filled with headlines. Holt Hare, accused of trust interference. Estate mistress linked to fraudulent audit. Hospital witnesses speak out on abuse of sick wife. Calder tried to give one interview early on, insisting it was a private misunderstanding, but the reporter countered with court documents and footage of the dirty water incident. Public sympathy didn't bend his way. It bent toward Serafina. Nix ran first. Not out of town, her bail conditions wouldn't allow that, but from every room that reminded her of who she'd tried to be. Clients dropped her quietly. Emails went unanswered. 2 contracts she bragged about online were terminated for convenience. Another sent her an official notice. We cannot maintain a relationship during an active fraud investigation. Within weeks, her accounts were partially frozen pending review. Transactions to and from Calder's company were flagged. The robe she'd once worn proudly now sat in a crumpled heap on the back of a chair in her small rented place. She stared at it one night and realized it had never made her powerful. It had only made her obvious. Her name appeared again in a short article, this time with the words "potential co-conspirator" attached. No one called to ask how she was. Even Calder stopped answering her messages. There was no dramatic arrest scene for her, at least not yet. Just a slow, steady narrowing of her world. Calder fought the longest. He tried to charm shareholders, reassure partners, and frame the court findings as misunderstandings exaggerated by an emotional spouse. But investors read newspapers too. When the trust's legal team quietly notified one of the Holt companies that they were reviewing past transactions connected to Calder, 2 board members resigned within a month. A bank, already uneasy with his spending and the negative publicity, decided not to renew a key line of credit. The numbers began to tilt in the wrong direction. He tried to sell some properties to cover gaps, but the emergency court order tied his hands on anything that might impact Serafina or Luma. Every attempt to shift assets triggered another conversation with a lawyer. In less than a year, 2 of his smaller businesses folded. One had been funding his lifestyle more than he admitted. He had once called Serafina poor, like it was a permanent stain. Now he sat in a quiet apartment with bare walls, sorting through legal bills he could barely pay. No cameras came to that room. No one applauded. Dorcella tried to salvage status through control. She attended luncheons, forced smiles, and said things like, "The court misunderstood, and my son married the wrong kind of woman." But the other women at the table had also seen the footage. They'd read about the envelope. They had daughters and granddaughters of their own. Invitations slowed, then stopped. Some women she once looked down on crossed the street rather than greet her in public. Within the family, blame moved like a restless shadow. Calder blamed her for intercepting the letter. Nix blamed her for dragging her into the trust mess. Cousins avoided Holt gatherings. The woman who had once orchestrated every cruel scene now found herself alone in a house that felt too large, too empty, and thanks to court restrictions no longer truly hers to command. Pride kept her from apologizing. Loneliness didn't. But by then, no one was listening. Far from the Holt estate, in a calm office lined with windows and quiet plants, Serafina sat at a polished oak table. Trust officer Alaric Venn sat across from her with a final stack of documents. Malin stood nearby, arms folded loosely, a small, rare smile on her face. Oris had joined by video call from his office, mostly to hear the conclusion to the story he'd helped unwind. "Miss Vale," Alaric said, "these papers finalize your full control of the Vale Dynasty Trust. All protective clauses are active. You have the power to direct investments, create charitable branches, and designate future beneficiaries." He paused. "This trust was designed not just to make you wealthy," he added, "but to keep you safe from exactly what you just lived through." Serafina glanced at the documents. Numbers still felt heavy on the page, but they didn't scare her. Maeve's training made sure of that. On the edge of the table sat a small drawing Luma had made while waiting 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. Above them, in wobbly letters, Luma had written, "Me and Mama, safe." Serafina's chest tightened. Not with pain this time, with gratitude. She lifted the pen, signed Serafina Vale on the main line. Then, on the copy where her name still included Holt for current legal records, she drew a neat line through it. Alaric nodded once. "It's done." Malin exhaled. "Welcome to a life you control." A second later, the door burst open. "Mama!" Luma ran inside, the child specialist trailing behind with an amused smile. Serafina opened her arms and lifted her, spinning just once, careful of her heart but free in her motion. "Did you win?" Luma asked, eyes wide. Serafina smiled. "We didn't just win, little light. We walked away." Luma giggled and hugged her neck. Are we safe now? Serafina looked into her daughter's eyes. We are safer than we have ever been, she said. And if anyone tries to hurt us again, we won't be silent. Luma nodded seriously, then leaned her head against Serafina's shoulder. Alaric stepped back to give them space. Malin turned toward the window, watching the city moving below. What will you do first? She asked. Serafina thought for a moment. Rest, she said. Then I want to make sure other women like me quiet, called burden, called weak, know they're not alone. Maybe a foundation, legal help, medical support, something that turns all of this into more than just my story. Oris's voice crackled through the speaker. That would be a very efficient use of $10 billion. They all laughed softly. Serafina walked to the window with Luma on her hip. The sun was low but bright, painting the glass in warm light. They tried to erase me, she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. They forgot I owned the ending, Luma pointed out at the view. It looks like a new story, Mama. Serafina kissed her temple. It is, she said. Behind them, the folder with the trust documents lay closed. The chapter of humiliation was over. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video. Unaware his wife secretly owns a multi-billion-dollar company. Ex-husband abandons wife and daughter for his dream mansion after their divorce. What happened next? He didn't just walk away. He slammed divorce papers on the kitchen table of a small suburban home, told his wife she was holding him back, and drove off to a glass mansion with another woman on his arm. That morning, Emma Collins steadied her hands as the paper shook in front of her. Her husband, Ryan, stood by the counter, his voice cold, his eyes full of a life he thought he deserved more than her. I'm filing for divorce, he said. I'm done living small. Behind him, their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, peeked from the hallway in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed bear, trying to understand why her father was leaving. He thought he was trading a boring wife for a dream mansion. He thought he was stepping into wealth, luxury, and a future built on marble floors and infinity pools. He thought Emma would be left with nothing but a broken home and a pile of bills. But what he never knew was this. The woman he just abandoned quietly owned something far bigger than his new house, an entire company worth billions, a digital empire that helped build the very financial system he was begging for loans from. On the same night he carried his suitcases into that mansion, Emma answered a calm phone call in her daughter's room and heard the words, "Ma'am, the board approved the merger. Your net worth just crossed $3.1 billion. This is not just a story about a man who left. It's about what happens when the person you underestimate most is the one holding the real power." Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it is like letting Emma's voice fade back into silence. When you click that button, you stand with every woman abandoned, every child left behind, and every quiet soul who chose to rise. Please, subscribe now, and in the comments, share where you're watching from. The sharp hiss of a boiling kettle broke the silence. Steam filled the small kitchen, wrapping around Emma Collins like a ghost of the life she used to dream about. She was 36, graceful but weary, the kind of woman whose eyes carried both patience and unspoken stories. Her movements were careful, habitually calm, yet beneath the surface, something heavy lingered. She poured the water into a chipped mug and stirred, the soft clink of the spoon echoing through the modest home she shared with her husband, Ryan Collins, 38, and their 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Outside, sunlight touched the curtains. Inside, the air was thick with quiet tension. "Morning, sweetheart," she said softly as Ryan entered. Tie half done, phone already in hand. He didn't look up. "Morning. Did you pay the credit card yet? They called again yesterday." Emma smiled faintly, hiding the ache behind it. "I'll handle it today. Don't worry." He sighed. "You always say that. I'm just tired of scraping by, Em. I want more for us. For Lily." She wanted to say, "We already have more than you know," but she didn't. Instead, she placed his breakfast on the table, eggs, toast, and black coffee, and brushed a crumb from the corner of his plate with quiet care. Once Emma's life had looked very different. Years ago, before she met Ryan, she spent long nights in her garage, coding until her fingers went numb. She had built a software system that helped small businesses manage data, a simple idea that grew faster than she ever expected. She called it Core Link Solutions. Investors later called it genius. Within 7 years, it became the foundation of a massive digital infrastructure company valued in the billions. But Emma never wanted fame or attention. Her mentor, the late Professor Henry Dalton, had warned her, "Success invites both respect and resentment. Protect your peace." So she did. She sold the public face of her company to a trusted board and remained its silent majority owner, using her maiden name, Emma Hayes. No one, not even Ryan, knew that the woman quietly cooking breakfast was one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the country. Back then, when Ryan proposed, she had been tired of working 18-hour days. He made her laugh again. He told her she was enough even without her empire. She believed him. For a few years, their life felt perfect, until his laughter changed. Lily skipped into the kitchen, her dark curls bouncing. "Mommy, can I bring the pancakes you made to school? The kids love them." Emma's smile softened. "Of course, baby. You can take 2. Ryan scrolled through his phone. "2? We barely have enough for the week. We can't keep wasting food." Emma's hand froze for a moment. She turned back to the stove, her expression calm, but her eyes flickered with something unspoken. On the counter, her laptop pinged. A soft notification appeared. "Quarterly board meeting in 1 hour, priority attendance required." She glanced toward Ryan. "Honey, could you get Lily's backpack? It's in the living room." He groaned but got up, leaving the kitchen. Quickly, Emma opened the laptop. A digital dashboard appeared. Graphs, numbers, rising profits. The headline read, "CoreLink Solutions surpasses $3.1 billion valuation." For a moment, she allowed herself a quiet breath of pride. Then she heard his footsteps returning and snapped the laptop shut. Ryan re-entered, backpack in hand. "Who keeps emailing you so early?" "Just the school board," she lied smoothly. "Parent volunteer stuff." Lily, stuffing her lunchbox, tilted her head. "Mom, are you going to your other job today?" Emma froze. "What job, honey?" "The one where you talk on the computer at night," Lily said innocently. "I told Daddy, remember?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "What's she talking about?" Emma smiled, masking her quickening heartbeat. "It's just freelance work. I help small companies online. Nothing serious." Ryan scoffed. "Maybe if you did something serious, we wouldn't be stuck in this house." Emma's hand lingered on the counter. There was a time his words would have cut her deeply. Now they just echoed against the wall, hollow and predictable. She wasn't angry, only sad that the man she once adored couldn't see the worth of what he already had. She turned to him, voice calm. "We'll be fine, Ryan, like always." He didn't respond. Lily tugged at Emma's sleeve. "Mom, will Dad come to my recital this time?" Emma hesitated, her eyes darting toward him. "Of course," she said softly, though doubt colored every word. Ryan's phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen, half hidden but visible enough for the audience to catch. "She's waiting. Don't make her wait again." His thumb hovered over the reply button. He stood, muttering something about being late, and left his untouched breakfast on the table. Emma watched him go, her face unreadable. She turned back to her laptop once the door shut. The reflection of her own face appeared against a spreadsheet filled with numbers too large to comprehend. A quiet, almost sad smile touched her lips. "Maybe someday," she whispered, "he'll see what he walked past every morning." Then her phone buzzed another message from the same company chat she'd hidden earlier. "Emergency board meeting, legal notice inbound." Emma's eyes darkened, the warmth fading. Something bigger was coming. The cracks in her marriage are about to split open. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Emma Collins looked up from the kitchen table, startled. The sound cut through the quiet house like thunder after a calm day. The clock on the wall blinked 9:47 p.m., 3 hours past dinner. Ryan Collins stood by the door, his tie loose, his eyes cold. He smelled faintly of cologne, too, expensive for his usual taste. His phone was still in his hand, screen dimming as he slipped it into his pocket. "You're late," Emma said gently, standing. "I saved your dinner." "I ate," he said flatly, tossing his jacket onto the couch. "You didn't have to wait." Her eyes softened, the way they always did when he came home angry. "I wasn't waiting. I was working, and helping Lily with her homework." He scoffed, opening the fridge and staring into it, though he wasn't hungry. Working? You mean that little freelance thing you do online? Emma said nothing, only lowered her gaze. He shut the fridge and turned to face her. Emma, when are you going to start doing something real? I can't keep living like this small, boring life. We're meant for more. Her voice remained calm, even. We have more than enough. Lily's happy. We have a home, and you have a job you like. That's something to be thankful for. Ryan laughed without humor. A job I like? Emma, I'm selling cars to people who can afford what we can't even dream of. I'm tired of being the guy who parks someone else's luxury while I drive a rusted one home. He paced the kitchen, his words sharp, restless. Do you know what I saw today? A mansion. 6 bedrooms, glass walls, infinity pool, everything. That's the kind of life we should have. Not this tiny, suffocating space. Emma's hand tightened on the back of the chair. A mansion doesn't build peace, Ryan. It builds distance. He turned, sneering. You wouldn't understand. You've never wanted anything big. For a second, her calm cracked. She took a breath, forcing her voice steady. You have no idea what I've wanted. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before she could answer, Lily's voice came softly from the hallway. Mommy? Daddy? Are you fighting? Emma turned instantly, kneeling to her daughter. No, sweetheart. Daddy's just tired. Go to bed, okay? Lily nodded sleepily and walked away, clutching her stuffed bear. The sight of her small figure retreating into the shadows made the silence heavier. Years ago, when Ryan lost his first job, it was Emma who held him together. She had been younger, full of faith in him. She sold her old laptop to pay their rent. When he doubted himself, she'd tell him, You're not your job, Ryan. You're the man who'll build something better. Back then, he'd smile and pull her close. You're too good for me. She'd laugh. No, I'm with you because I see who you are when the world doesn't. But time had changed him. The kindness had turned to criticism, the charm into resentment. Now, he leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. There's a real estate deal I heard about, he said. A mansion on the market for half its value. If I could just find investors, Emma interrupted softly. You think a mansion will fix? What's broken? Ryan's jaw tightened. It's not about fixing, it's about winning. I'm tired of feeling like I settled. Her eyes shifted ever so slightly, just enough for the audience to feel she's hiding something. Her face, calm but unreadable, gave nothing away. Ryan, she said quietly, what would you do if you suddenly had everything you wanted? He looked up at her, confused. What kind of question is that? Just curious, she said, smiling faintly. Would you still be you? He scoffed. If I had money, I'd finally be free. The word hung in the air. Emma's heart sank, but her expression didn't change. She had heard something deeper in that word, a quiet confession. He didn't just want wealth, he wanted escape. After he left the room, Emma sat at the table again, staring at the half-empty wine glass beside her laptop. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the surface of the wine, half calm, half fractured. She thought about the last email she'd received that morning. CoreLink Global Board requests CEO confirmation for expansion approval. She delayed her response. She didn't want power, she wanted peace. But as she listened to Ryan's muffled voice in the next room, arguing quietly into his phone, she realized peace might no longer be an option. The sound of his voice grew clearer. Yes, I'll come tomorrow. Don't worry, he whispered. She doesn't suspect a thing. Emma froze. A second later, she heard a faint laugh from the other end of the line, a woman's voice, soft but sharp. She'll never make you rich, Ryan. But I can. Emma's hand trembled around her glass. Her eyes rose slowly to the family photo on the wall, the one where Ryan's arm was around her shoulder, smiling. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Her breathing steadied. Her expression hardened, though her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm. Be careful what you wish for, she whispered to the empty room. Then she reached for her laptop, reopening the CoreLink board window. At the top corner, a message blinked. Upcoming merger approval, next 30 days. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her face now unreadable. Something deep inside her had shifted. The next time Ryan talks about his dream mansion, Emma will let him have it, just not in the way he expects. The sound of papers slamming onto the table snapped the air in two. Emma flinched. The kitchen, once filled with the quiet rhythm of breakfast and laughter, now echoed with sharp words and heavier silence. Ryan stood by the counter, his face red, his voice louder than it had ever been. In his hand were divorce papers, fresh, crisp, and cold. "I can't do this anymore, Emma," he said, his tone cutting through her like glass. "I'm filing for divorce. I've made up my mind." Her breath caught. "What are you talking about?" He shoved the papers closer. "You heard me. I'm done living small. I'm done waiting for miracles that never come. I need a real life. A bigger life." Emma's voice trembled, but her words were calm. "Ryan, this isn't about the house or the money. This is about us, our family." "Family?" he barked, laughing bitterly. "You mean this routine? This boring, dead-end existence? I'm suffocating here, Emma. I can't breathe anymore." Her hand gripped the edge of the table for balance. "What about Lily? She's 8, Ryan. She needs her father." "She'll be fine," he snapped. "Kids adapt. She'll thank me when she's older, when she sees what real success looks like." Emma stared at him, eyes glistening. "You're leaving us for a dream, Ryan. A dream that doesn't even exist." He turned away, unable or unwilling to meet her eyes. "It exists. I've seen it." A boy stands outside a mansion gate, 14 years old, dirt on his jeans, envy in his eyes. Inside the gate, boys his age laugh. Around a pool, wearing designer clothes and smiles bought by their parents' money. One of them notices Ryan and sneers. "Don't stare too long, kid. You'll fog up the glass." Ryan's fists clench. His heart burns with quiet humiliation. He whispers under his breath, "One day, I'll live like that. No one will ever look down on me again." That same hunger still lived in his eyes, now older, sharper, more dangerous. Emma saw it and knew it was useless to argue, but she tried anyway. "Ryan, I've supported you through everything, every failure, every job you lost. I stood by you when you had nothing. You think leaving is going to fill that emptiness inside you?" He paused, just for a moment. Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, guilt, or maybe fear, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. "I'm tired of being pitied, Emma," he said quietly. "Tired of pretending this is enough." Her voice broke. "So you'd rather destroy your family than face yourself?" He looked at her, then cold, detached. "I already made my choice." She stepped forward, her tone softening, desperate now. "Ryan, please. For Lily. Don't do this." He didn't answer. He picked up the papers, signed them with a heavy hand, and left them on the table. The pen rolled off and hit the floor, the sound echoing like a gavel. Emma stood frozen as the door closed behind him. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. Lily came down the hallway in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, where's Daddy going?" Emma crouched down, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He's going on a trip, sweetheart. He just needs some time." "Will he come back?" Emma hesitated. "I hope so." Lily hugged her tightly, and Emma held her until the little girl fell asleep in her arms. Then she sat in the dim light of the kitchen, staring at the divorce papers, her hands trembling but her face steady. She whispered, as if to herself, "He's not just leaving me, he's leaving himself." Ryan's car pulls into a gleaming driveway, a mansion shining beneath the sunset. Beside him, Vanessa, a tall, confident woman in her early 30s, smiles and places her hand on his arm. "This is it," she says softly. "Your new beginning." Ryan looks up at the glass walls, the shimmering pool, the marble floors inside. His reflection stares back. He doesn't look happy, just hollow. Vanessa laughs and kisses him, whispering, "You made the right choice." He forces a smile. "Yeah, the right choice." Cut to Emma. She's in Lily's room, packing small boxes, tiny dresses, old toys, family photos. Each item placed gently, as if fragile memories might shatter if handled too fast. Lily's voice from behind. "Mom, can Daddy see my new drawing?" Emma swallows hard. "He will, sweetheart. Someday." Her phone buzzes on the table. A number flashes across the screen, unknown, corporate. She answers softly. "Hello? Ma'am," a professional voice says. "The board approved the merger. Your net worth just crossed $3.1 billion. Emma goes still, her eyes closed for a long moment. When she opens them, her calm is absolute, almost chilling. She glances at the divorce papers beside her. The ink from Ryan's signature has barely dried. She whispers, almost to herself, "He left just in time." A faint smile touches her lips, not of joy, but of quiet power finally waking. She looks at the sleeping Lily, brushing her hair gently. "From now on," she murmurs, "we do it our way." The camera pans out their small home, fading into darkness, replaced by the faint glimmer of city lights far in the distance, where Emma's empire silently waits. Tomorrow the world will begin to see who Emma Collins really is, and Ryan will wish he never walked away. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a wall of glass and light. "Good morning, miss." "Collins," a voice greeted. Emma stepped out, elegant, composed, and untouchable. The woman who once stood in a small kitchen begging her husband to stay was gone. In her place stood Emma Hayes, CEO of CoreLink Global, one of the largest private tech companies in the country. 2 years had passed since the divorce. The morning sun glinted off the skyline behind her, casting a halo of gold around her as she walked toward the boardroom. Her assistant, Maya Turner, a sharp 30-year-old with bright eyes and quick wit, trailed beside her with a tablet in hand. "The Singapore deal is finalized," Maya said, keeping pace. "The merger increased our valuation to $4.2 billion. Emma nodded slightly, calm and controlled. "Good. Make sure our privacy contracts stay sealed." "Of course." The doors opened to a long glass table surrounded by executives in suits. All eyes turned to her. Emma took her seat at the head of the table. "Let's begin." Her voice was soft, but commanding. As the meeting continued, Emma's thoughts drifted briefly. The journey to this moment had not been easy. The first months after Ryan left were a storm of grief and silence. She had spent nights staring at the divorce papers, wondering how love could rot into greed. But she didn't break. Instead, she rebuilt slowly, deliberately. While Lily slept, Emma worked deep into the night, designing new strategies for CoreLink. She had turned her pain into power, her heartbreak into discipline. Now she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. Her phone buzzed quietly. A message from Lily's school popped up. "Parent-teacher meeting 3:30 p.m. She smiled faintly and typed back a reminder to herself. Be there. To the outside world, she was an empire in heels. To Lily, she was just mom. That balance, power, and love was her new strength. Maya cleared her throat gently. "There's one more matter, Miss Collins." A small loan request came in from a real estate company, owned by a Ryan Collins. The name hung in the air like a ghost. Emma's pen paused over her notepad. She didn't look up, didn't blink. "Amount requested?" she asked softly. $2 million, Maya said. "He's developing a luxury mansion project. Looks like he's struggling with capital flow." Emma finally looked up. Her expression didn't change. "Approve it." Maya hesitated. "Are you sure?" Emma nodded once. "Approve it under our subsidiary. No contact. No exceptions." Her tone was calm, almost gentle. But beneath that composure, something flickered, a cold flame of understanding. Maya jotted the note and moved on, unaware of the storm she'd just set in motion. That night, the glow of the city faded into the warm light of Emma's home. She sat on Lily's bed reading Charlotte's Web. Lily, now 10, was half asleep, head resting on her mother's shoulder. "Mom," she murmured, "do you ever get tired?" Emma smiled, brushing Lily's hair aside. "Sometimes, but then I remember why I started." "What's that?" "You," Emma whispered. Lily smiled, eyes closing as she drifted to sleep. Emma sat for a moment longer, watching her daughter breathe. In this quiet, her walls fell away. The powerful CEO disappeared, leaving only a mother who had rebuilt her world from ashes. She kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "You'll never have to chase what's already yours." Then, as she stood and walked into the hallway, her phone buzzed again, another email notification. The headline on the news alert froze her mid-step. Ryan Collins' luxury project faces bankruptcy, risk mansion deal in jeopardy. For a second, Emma said nothing. Then, she exhaled slowly, setting the phone down on the console table beside the family photo. Her eyes lingered on Ryan's face in the picture, smiling, confident, unaware. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Karma doesn't knock. It walks in when had a bed. You least expect it. She turned off the light, the room falling into shadow. Outside, lightning flickered across the skyline, a distant storm forming. The storm isn't weather, it's consequence. And it's heading straight for Ryan Collins. The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence. Ryan Collins turned sharply, his pulse spiking. Across the living room, Vanessa, his girlfriend, stood trembling, the remains of a wine glass scattered at her feet. "I told you, Ryan," she cried, voice sharp with panic. "You promised this place was secure now. The bills keep piling up, the contractors want their money, and the investors are threatening to pull out." Ryan rubbed his temples, exhaustion etched into his face. The marble floors gleamed beneath their feet, the massive chandelier above them glimmering cold and expensive. What once felt like paradise now suffocated him. "I just need more time," he muttered. "The next deal will come through." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "You said that last month. You said that when we sold the car, when we maxed out the credit cards. You've got nothing left, Ryan, not even pride." He slammed his fist against the table. "I built this. I just need a little help." She laughed bitterly. "Built what? You borrowed everything? This house? This company? None of it's yours." The words cut deep because they were true. Ryan walked to the tall window, staring out at the empty pool below. The mansion that once felt like his victory now mocked him. His reflection stared back, a man who had traded love for marble, laughter for silence. 2 years ago, when he'd left Emma, he thought wealth would fill the emptiness she once occupied. But no matter how many parties he hosted or how much champagne he drank, peace never came. He remembered the day he invested every cent into his real estate startup, Collins Estates. He'd convinced himself it would make him untouchable. The funding came from a silent investor, an anonymous corporate branch that believed in his potential. Now that branch had gone quiet, payments delayed, emails unanswered, and every hour that passed, his debts grew heavier. "Ryan!" Vanessa snapped, pacing. "Sell your shares before it's too late." He turned to her. "And go back to nothing?" "No, I'll fix this. I always do." She threw her hands up. "You can't fix it, Ryan. You don't even own the land this mansion is built on." He froze, blinking. "What?" Vanessa crossed her arms. "You didn't read the fine print, did you? The title's under your investor's control until the project's complete. You don't own anything." The words hit like a blow. Ryan stumbled back into a chair, mind spinning. That evening, as the storm outside deepened, Ryan sat alone in his office, surrounded by unpaid invoices. He opened a new letter stamped in red, "Foreclosure notice." At the bottom, printed in small letters, was the logo of a financing company, CoreLink Financial Group. He frowned, muttering, "CoreLink." The name meant nothing to him, but to the audience. It screamed one truth, Emma. Ryan sighed heavily, tossing the letter aside. "Another loan shark," he murmured. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the reflection of his own face, aging, tired, regretful. From upstairs, Vanessa shouted, "Ryan!" "The electricity just got cut off." He buried his head in his hands. "Just a glitch. It's temporary." But deep down, he knew better. The dream was cracking, and this time, no one was going to save him. Downstairs, the wind pressed against the mansion's windows, howling like a warning. Ryan didn't see the next email arrive on his screen. Final audit meeting scheduled, CEO Emma Hayes to review all outstanding accounts. The storm had just begun. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. Ryan Collins stood in the middle of the sleek, glass-walled office, eyes darting around the room. The silence pressed against him. The air smelled of wealth-polished wood, new leather, and quiet power. Across the table sat a woman in a charcoal suit, calm, collected, and unreadable. Her nameplate read, M. Turner, Financial Executive, Maya Turner, Emma's trusted assistant. Ryan didn't know that. He only saw another corporate gatekeeper, another person between him and the salvation he desperately needed. "Mr. Collins," Maya began, her voice cool and professional. "Thank you for coming. We've reviewed your case. Unfortunately, your company's payment is 60 days overdue. This meeting is your final opportunity to negotiate terms." Ryan forced a smile, trying to sound confident. "I just need a little time. My next investor is lined up. Once the funds clear, everything will be paid in full." Maya's gaze didn't soften. You've said that for 3 extensions already. He leaned forward. Look, you don't understand. This mansion, the project, it's my legacy. I built it from scratch. I just need a chance. She folded her hands neatly on the desk. CoreLink Financial operates under strict policy, Mr. Collins. Unless payment is made by tomorrow, ownership of the property and all assets tied to the loan will transfer to our parent company. Ryan froze. Transfer? To who? The owner prefers privacy, Maya replied, her tone unchanging. But I can tell you this much, she's known for making quick decisions. For a moment, Ryan couldn't breathe. He stared at the glossy surface of the table, seeing not his reflection, but the version of himself he once believed in: successful, admired, unstoppable. Now, that man was gone. He had gambled everything: his savings, his dignity, his family. And now the walls he'd built to protect his pride were closing in. His voice dropped to a whisper. Do you know what it's like to lose everything? To give your life to a dream and watch it burn? Maya studied him carefully. Sometimes, she said softly, losing everything is the only way to learn what matters. The words struck him harder than she intended. He sat back, staring at her. For a strange, fleeting second, something about her tone reminded him of Emma, gentle but firm. He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. Please, he said, his voice cracking now. Whoever she is, this owner, this person, let me talk to her. I'll convince her I can turn things around. Maya's expression didn't change. I'll pass along the request. Ryan gave a shaky laugh, running a hand through his hair. I'd give anything to meet the person who owns this empire. He didn't notice the small smirk that flickered on Maya's face before she looked away. Maya stood, gathering her papers. You'll receive our final notice by morning, Mr. Collins. He nodded numbly, staring after her as she left the room. The door closed behind her, and his world felt smaller than ever. Down the hall, Maya pulled out her phone and typed a message. Her reflection in the elevator mirrored the faintest hint of satisfaction. Text message. He requested to meet you in person. She pressed send. Across the city, in a high-rise office bathed in gold light, Emma's phone buzzed. She read the message silently, her expression unreadable. Then, with calm precision, she typed back, schedule it. The faintest smile touched her lips as she set the phone down beside a framed photo of Lily. The game had just shifted, and this time, she held every card. Tomorrow, Ryan will finally meet the owner. But the woman behind the glass isn't the one he remembers. The doors to CoreLink's top floor opened with a heavy metallic hum. Ryan Collins stepped inside, his heart hammering so loudly he could almost hear it echo through the sleek glass hallway. Everything around him gleamed: polished floors, minimalist design, quiet power. The kind of power he used to chase, but never truly touched. A woman at the front desk rose from her seat. Mr. Collins, the CEO will see you now. He nodded stiffly, adjusting his tie, though his hands were trembling. Right. Thank you. He followed her directions toward the corner office, massive, glass-walled, overlooking the entire city. As he approached, he saw a figure standing by the window. Her back turned. The skyline stretched before her like a kingdom she ruled in silence. Ma'am, the assistant said softly, Mr. Collins is here. The woman didn't move for a moment. Then, quietly, she said, send him in. The door clicked shut behind him. The world seemed to hold its breath. Miss Hayes? Ryan began, his voice unsure. Thank you for meeting me. I just wanted to explain. The woman turned slowly, and everything inside him stopped. It was Emma, his ex-wife, the woman he had walked away from. Ryan froze in place, unable to speak. His throat went dry, words dying, before they reached his lips. Emma? He whispered, as if saying her name might change the truth in front of him. Her face was calm, poised, unreadable. She looked nothing like the woman who once packed lunchboxes and wiped away tears in a small kitchen. Her hair was perfectly styled, her tailored suit a symbol of control. She gave a faint smile, not cruel, not kind, just knowing. You wanted to meet the owner, she said quietly. Ryan's mouth fell open. You? Me? He stumbled a step forward. You're behind CoreLink? Yes. Her tone was calm, almost gentle. The same company that funded your mansion, your business, your dream. He ran a trembling hand through his hair, eyes wide with disbelief. I don't understand. You how? You were just, her gaze sharpened. Just what, Ryan? A wife? A mother? Someone who didn't dream big enough for you? He swallowed hard, guilt creeping up his spine. Emma took a few slow steps toward him, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. I built CoreLink from nothing, years before you ever met me. I kept it hidden under my maiden name. I wanted peace, not power. I thought love was enough. Her voice softened, but her eyes did not. I was wrong. The screen fills with flashes of Emma's past. A young Emma coding late at night in a cold garage, coffee cups stacked beside her. Her first investor meeting, trembling but determined. Her signing her first deal as Emma Hayes. Her working quietly beside a sleeping Lily after Ryan left. Each moment plays over the echo of Ryan's earlier words. You've never wanted anything big. Ryan lowered his head, voice breaking. You're the reason my company's failing. Emma looked at him, eyes calm, unreadable. No, Ryan, she said quietly. You're the reason. The silence that followed was unbearable. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside the fawn window. Ryan's voice cracked. Was this your revenge? Emma shook her head slowly. No. Revenge takes effort. This was just business. He stared at her, tears gathering, but pride holding them back. So that's it? You win? Emma turned back to the window, her reflection overlapping his in the glass, two versions of the same past, but only one had survived it. I didn't need to win, she said softly. I just needed peace. A soft knock interrupted the silence. Maya entered, holding a document. Ma'am, she said, setting it on the table. The transfer is complete. Collins Estates now belongs entirely to CoreLink. Ryan's face went pale. No, this can't be happening. Emma didn't look at him. It already has. He took a shaky step backward, the weight of his choices finally crushing him. As he left the office, the door closing behind him, Emma stood motionless, staring out over the city. Her eyes softened only once when her phone buzzed. A message from Lily's school. Parent Appreciation Day next week. RSVP? Emma typed back, I'll be there. Her expression gentled, but her voice, when she finally whispered to herself, carried quiet warning. Some storms don't destroy, she said. They reveal who was built to stand. The world will soon learn of Emma's rise, and Ryan's public fall is only beginning. The flash of cameras lit up the room like lightning. Journalists filled the hall, microphones raised, flashes bursting in every direction. At the front of the sleek glass stage stood Emma Hayes, poised and graceful beneath the bright lights. Her calmness was disarming. Her presence commanded the room. Behind her, the screen displayed the words in bold silver letters. CoreLink Global announces landmark acquisition. The audience buzzed with anticipation. This was no ordinary business deal. Rumors had already spread that Emma's next move would shake the real estate market to its core. The moderator stepped aside and gestured to her. Ladies and gentlemen, the woman redefining innovation, Miss Emma Hayes. Applause filled the room. Emma stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady and clear. Good morning, she began. For years, CoreLink Global has focused on technology that connects and empowers people. But connection isn't just about data. It's about community homes, families, futures. She paused. The audience leaned in. That's why today, she continued, I'm proud to announce our acquisition of Collins Estates, a struggling real estate development project. Effective immediately, it will be restructured and renamed Lily Estates, a sustainable housing initiative named after my daughter. The cameras erupted in flashes. The crowd murmured, realizing what had just happened. Emma's face remained calm, though her heart was steady fire. This was not revenge, it was correction. 2 years ago, Ryan had abandoned her and their daughter for that same dream, the mansion, the luxury, the illusion of success. Now she owned the very empire that had broken him. But she didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply looked out at the cameras and spoke softly. Lily Estates will represent renewal proof that even from the ashes of failure, something good can grow. It's never about how high you climb, but what you build that lasts. The applause returned, thunderous and emotional. Behind her, The large digital screen shifted to show concept art, beautiful green neighborhoods, solar rooftops, community parks. Emma stepped back, clasping her hands together. Her eyes, however, were distant. Somewhere deep inside, she remembered the woman she once was, the wife who cooked breakfast in a quiet kitchen, who believed love could cure ambition. That woman was gone, but her kindness remained. The scene switched instantly, a sharp contrast. Ryan Collins sat alone on his couch, staring at the TV. The same press conference played on screen. The words Lily Estates glowed behind Emma as she spoke. His eyes widened, his face drained of color. She bought it? He whispered, voice breaking. She owns it all? Beside him, Vanessa stood frozen. For weeks she'd been restless, watching the walls of wealth crumble around them. Now the truth was undeniable. She was the investor, she said coldly. All this time? It was her. Ryan buried his face in his hands. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't. You never looked past your own reflection. He lifted his head, eyes red. Vanessa, please. But she was already walking toward the door, heels clicking against the marble floor. At the threshold, she turned back, slipped the diamond ring he had given her from her finger, and dropped it to the floor with a sharp clang. Enjoy your empire of dust, she said, and left without another word. The echo of the door slamming was deafening. Ryan sat motionless. The TV continued to play. Emma's calm face filled the screen. She was smiling now, gentle, composed, glowing under the lights as the words, empowering new beginnings, appeared beneath her. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. His jaw trembled. His reflection in the black TV screen looked like a ghost of the man he once was. For the first time, he understood the weight of everything he'd lost, not just the house, not the money, but the woman who built the world he destroyed. The camera slowly panned in on the television as Emma concluded, Lily Estates will honor integrity, hope, and second chances. Because every ending deserves a purpose. Her eyes flickered toward the camera, as if she knew who was watching. Ryan's breathing quickened. His heart pounded in his chest. He whispered, she knew I'd be watching. The television light flickered once, illuminating the papers on the table beside him, legal documents marked. Final repossession. Tomorrow his name will make headlines not for success but for scandal, and Emma's quiet victory will echo louder than any revenge could. The sound of wind howled through the hollow mansion. Ryan Collins sat on the cold marble floor, surrounded by boxes in silence. The luxury furniture was gone, repossessed. The echo of his footsteps was all that remained of the empire he had tried to build. In front of him lay a single photo album, its leather cover worn from years of neglect. His trembling hands opened it. The first photo showed him and Emma, smiling in front of their old suburban house. She wore an apron, flower on her cheek, her hand on his shoulder. Beside her, Lily, just 4 years old, then grinned with missing teeth. Ryan's eyes burned. He turned the page. Photo after photo, Emma at her laptop late at night, Lily asleep beside her. Emma carrying groceries in the rain. Emma bandaging the cut on his hand after one of his failed construction attempts. He had called her unambitious then, but now, staring at her tired yet determined smile, he realized the truth. She wasn't unambitious. She was unstoppable. He was just too blind to see it. Ryan leaned back against the empty wall, clutching the photo to his chest. His mind replayed their memories like fading echoes. Her laughter in the kitchen, her soft voice telling him, "We'll be fine, Ryan. We always are." He had traded all of it for glass and marble, for pride and vanity. A flashback filled his mind, Emma, handing him a lunch bag before work, whispering, "Don't skip meals today." He had scoffed back then. "You worry too much." Now he'd give anything to hear her say those words again. A single tear slid down his cheek, landing on the photo. He wiped it quickly, ashamed of the man he'd become. Ryan reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over her name. Emma. He hesitated, then pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, voicemail. Her voice came through steady, calm, familiar. "Ryan, I got your message. For Lily's sake, I forgive you. But for mine, I can't forget." The line went dead. Ryan stared at the phone, breath shaking, heart breaking. The silence returned louder than ever. Outside, the for sale sign swayed in the wind. creaking softly like a final goodbye. Tomorrow he will face the world one last time and learn what true humility feels like. The camera opened on a quiet park, bathed in golden sunlight. Children's laughter floated through the air. Ducks glided peacefully across a small lake, ripples glimmering under the soft orange glow of evening. Emma Hayes sat on a wooden bench, her daughter Lily beside her. A paper bag of breadcrumbs rested in Lily's lap. Every few seconds, Lily tossed a handful into the water, giggling as the ducks scrambled for each crumb. Emma smiled a real, unguarded smile. For the first time in years, her shoulders weren't heavy with secrets or pain. The storm was finally over. "Mom," Lily said, eyes sparkling, "when I grow up, can I have my own company too?" Emma looked at her daughter lovingly. "You can build anything you dream of, sweetheart. Just remember, build it with love, not pride." Lily nodded, swinging her legs happily. Emma leaned back, watching the sky change colors. The golden hour wrapped the world in warmth, and she thought about how far she'd come. She remembered the mornings she woke before dawn to pack lunches, the nights she coded quietly in her garage, the heartbreak of watching Ryan walk out the door. She had once believed love meant sacrifice. Now she knew love also meant strength, choosing peace over revenge, dignity over pain. In the distance, a gentle breeze carried the faint sound of a news anchor's voice from a passing radio. Former businessman Ryan Collins files for bankruptcy following corporate acquisition by CoreLink Global, now known as Collins Corp., led by CEO Emma Hayes. Emma closed her eyes, breathing in deeply. She didn't feel triumph, just closure. The world had witnessed her success, but this quiet moment with Lily was her real victory. As they stood to leave, Lily tugged her mother's hand. "Mom, look!" Across the street, a brand new billboard gleamed in the sunlight. On it, CoreLink's new logo had been revealed, its name changed to Collins Corp. Below it, in bold golden letters, the new slogan read, "Built from love, not greed." Emma gazed up at it, her reflection shimmering in the glass. Lily slipped her small hand into hers. "Is that for us, Mom?" Emma smiled softly. "It's for everyone who forgot where real wealth begins." They walked away hand in hand, their shadows stretching long under the fading sun. A calm voiceover closed the scene, Emma's inner thought echoing softly. "He thought wealth was built in mansions. I learned it's built in hearts." Thank you for watching. Emma's story to the end. If her journey from abandonment to quiet power touched you, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their worth. Drop a comment below. I choose love over greed, so I know you were here till the end.